Welcome to this, the first session in the module Conducting Coaching. It's interesting to think about what enables a coach to achieve success and what it is that means a person is able to coach. What are the beliefs that will create the greatest impact on their client? It is the coach's beliefs and what they presuppose as a result. So that is what we're going to cover in this session, the beliefs and presuppositions for a coach. So the objectives for this session are that at the end of it you'll be able to identify presuppositions and beliefs that allow a coach to operate optimally. You'll be able to analyse how those beliefs impact on the coaching and evaluate how these beliefs and presuppositions can be used for effective results. So why are a coach's beliefs important? Well, as we've already realised from the communication model, our state of mind and the beliefs that have led to it have a direct impact on our behaviour and our results. So everything we say and do is a projection of our inner thinking. We can't help but do this even if we think we're masking it. Our beliefs are fundamental to our results. Our beliefs are what we hold to be true. And if, for instance, you believe that a particular person is kind, respectful, honest, and those things are important to you, you will handle them very differently than if your belief is that they are the opposite of that. When we hold unresourceful beliefs, then we're going to project those onto our clients. And when we hold empowering, inspiring beliefs, we'll project those onto our clients. So what sort of beliefs have been found to make the difference when you're coaching? We're going to look at a set of beliefs and presuppositions. That's things that we take for granted, things that we assume, that have been modelled by Richard Bandler and John Grinder, amongst others. They chose excellent change agents and modelled what beliefs drove them to achieve the successes they achieved. What were the critical beliefs that were the ones that made the difference? What were the beliefs that enabled them to build such empowering relationships with their clients and enabled them to change and move forward so successfully? These are known as the presuppositions of NLP, and we're going to consider the major presuppositions that have an impact in coaching. The first one is that everyone has their own map of the world. As we discovered in the communication model, everyone thinks about things differently because of the way they filter information and store it as their internal representations. Everyone has their own way of perceiving a situation. So how does this presupposition help you as a coach? One answer to that question is that it helps you understand that your client is coming from a unique perspective. And if you can understand that perspective, then you can help them the most. So what other answers did you give to the question? The second presupposition is respect for the other person's model of the world. Your job as a coach is to help a person move from their current model of the world to their desired model. It's not your job to change them to your model of the world. This means helping them work with their map and not imposing yours. Respect means having consideration for other people's maps and accepting that people have a right to have a different map from you. Respect does not mean you have to agree with their model of the world. It means that you respect that this is the model of the world that they're starting out with and that they've come to you for help. So it is likely that they are wanting help to change their model of the world in some way, and as a coach that is what you do. So how does this help in coaching? An answer to this is that it is one of the basic tenets of coaching. People will change and learn much easier if they're working with their own model of the world, rather than attempting to take on someone else's. That means that as a coach, you are working with how they're thinking at the moment and where they're starting from. And that makes it so much easier for them. What other answers did you have? The third presupposition we have is the meaning of your communication is the result you get. This is an interesting belief. I remember when I first started teaching things about communication, I used to tell people that communication was a two-way thing, implying that the responsibility for the result was equally shared. This presupposition suggests that you take full responsibility for the communication. Why is that useful? Well, it means you recognise that if you want success, then it's much more empowering to take full responsibility and to pay great attention to the person you're communicating with, and to observe carefully and listen carefully to what is happening with them once you've communicated, and then change the way you communicate if you're not getting the results you want. So what implication does this have in coaching? An answer to that could be that taking this responsibility means that you can learn more and more about how to coach the person better. Coaching is one of the most effective ways of improving your communication skills. What other answers did you have? This is an important belief, that people are doing the best with the resources they have available to them at the time. By resources, I'm largely talking about internal resources. And as we've already found out, our state or our frame of mind drives our behaviour, and that drives our results. If people are not getting the results that they want, it's usually because they've unconsciously got themselves into a really unresourceful state. And given that state, they're doing the very best that they can. For example, for someone who reacts to something, and they get really angry, and on reflection, later on when they reflect back on it, they rather wish they hadn't done that. But at the time, they were doing the very best they could once they were in that state. And it will be something that's happening on the outside that has triggered that state in them. And if they were able to do anything else at the time, they would have done it. But at that point in time, that was the resource that they made available to themselves. I'm sure all of you can think about times when you've done things and later on perhaps regretted acting in that particular way. And if you could have done anything else at that time, you would have done it differently. But at that moment in time, you reacted in the way that you reacted, and that was the best that you could do at that time. Later on, you might think back on it and decide, well, I would have been much better to do something else. But at that precise moment, you were doing the very best that you could. What would happen if, as a coach, you didn't operate with this belief? And how does holding this belief help you to become an even better coach? If a coach doesn't hold this belief, then they might find it difficult to help the person because of the judgments that they're making about the person's actions. If we don't hold this belief, then we will be judging the whole person rather than their behaviour. I'm sure you realise that you set out to achieve your outcome in whatever way you do, and if you don't achieve it, it's not because you haven't done the best you could do at the time. You may reflect later that you could have done something different, but at the time you were doing the very best that you could, and it's the same for everyone else. This belief means that to help someone move forward towards their outcomes, you'll want to discover what they're doing at the moment, what is triggering the unresourceful behaviour and the unresourceful state, and help them to find a better one and a more resourceful way of approaching the situation. What answers would you have added to this? The next presupposition is that people have all the resources that they need to make the changes that they want. And here again, we're talking about internal resources. So if you think about any internal resource someone may need to achieve a result, we have them already. You may think about confidence, determination, strength, vulnerability, empathy, etc. We have all accessed these resources at some time in our lives. It's not that we don't know how to do it, it's just that we're not accessing them in a particular situation. So at some time in your life you will have been confident. So you may have been confident in cleaning your teeth this morning, or brushing your hair, or whatever it is that you did. But sometime you will have had an experience of being confident. So it's not that you don't know how to do it, it's just that whatever situation you're finding yourself or a client finds themselves in where they're not feeling it. It's just that they're not accessing it at the moment. And the same with all the others. At some time in a person's life, they will have been determined. So they know how to do determination. It's just that when they come to you for a problem, they're not accessing it in that particular situation. So why is this an important belief to hold as a coach? As a coach, it's important that you recognise that the person you're coaching is capable of moving forward and overcoming any barriers. Very often people will use a coach because they have temporarily forgotten that they do have these resources. You'll often hear people saying things like, "I have no confidence. I've never had any." And it's vital that you recognise that they have confidence, but just at that moment or in that situation, they're not accessing it. And your job will be to ask questions to help them get back in touch with these resources that will really help them move forward and achieve what they want. The last of these beliefs and presuppositions that we are going to consider right now is that everything is a result and learn from the feedback. Everything we do will result in something. It may not be the one you thought you were going to get, but it will be a result. And the great thing about that is that you will get feedback from what you do. And the more that you pay attention, the more that you'll learn and find out and find the way to get the outcome that you want. And the more that you pay attention to your client, the more you'll learn about how to help this person. So when we were talking about the skills of coaching, and we talked about sensory acuity, about being able to pay exquisite attention to our client, this was the reason for it, so that we would get the feedback in order to really help the client. So what is it that you'll be paying attention to in order to get feedback about your client? If you're paying great attention to the person you're coaching, you'll know whether the person is moving forward or not. And some key things that you'd want to pay attention to would be the body language, the voice, and the words that they use. And all of that we talked about and explored fully when we were thinking about coaching skills. Here's an exercise for you to do. For each belief that we've just covered, think of a situation where you've held that particular belief and write down how it allowed you to achieve a successful result. What other beliefs do you think are important for someone who is coaching to hold? And why are those other beliefs important? Write those down too.